Black Phone 2 is officially out 3 years after the original film. Now, when this film was first announced, it was very confusing on where to go with a sequel because the grabber died. There's nothing to do. He died. What are you gonna do? Well, this movie decided to take a creative approach to that. By the end, it kind of worked. Now, for starters, just like the first film, the acting in this movie is absolutely phenomenal. You care for these characters because the acting in it is so great. And just 3 years ago, these actors were young. Now they're older. Now they have more acting experience. So if you thought the first film acting was great, just wait till you see this one. There's a lot more character-heavy moments in here just because the brother and sister are on screen a lot more together, so that leaves for a lot of emotional moments to happen. That leaves for a lot of great acting moments to happen. Because they're together and their acting skills have improved, all these emotional moments just hit a lot better. And that's saying a lot because the first film already had it great, but this time around, there's an emotional flair to the movie that, although this is a horror movie, there's that emotional touch to it that makes you care for these characters, adds that emotional layer, and makes it even better. And let's talk about the story direction, because like I mentioned in the intro, the grabber's dead. What do you do with a story? And overall, the movie worked. I'm surprised by that. Because like I said, the grabber's dead. What are you gonna do? But the movie found a creative way to do that. Is there problems with it? Yes. But overall, I was very surprised with the story direction that they took and how well it worked. Playing into that Nightmare on Elm Street factor, playing into that ghost haunting factor that the first movie set up. We then expanded more on that. We then expanded more on these characters' past and learn more about them. Was it needed? No. But is it now necessary? Yes. After seeing this movie, I now extremely appreciate it. I now appreciate all the backstory that they added to these characters, and everything they did with this movie only expanded on the first movie even more, and surprisingly, the second one really worked for me. And like the first movie, the mystery is the main center point of it. Without that mystery, the movie would be completely different, and I'm glad that the mystery is still in this movie. It is different because we're learning more about characters' past, and there's a whole nother layer to the story that you guys don't know yet. If you haven't seen the movie, you don't know it yet. But that mystery throughout the entire film is still what's so great about these movies. It keeps you in suspense the entire time. There are a lot of great jump scares in here, a lot more memorable ones than the first movie. I would say that this movie is scarier than the first movie because there are a lot of great jump scares in here, and there are so many suspenseful moments that they do have. There were so many moments that I was tense in my seat when watching this in the theaters because all of it is just really well crafted together. So essentially, everything great about the original film is all in this movie. The acting is 10 times better, the mystery extremely worked, the story direction worked. I actually liked a lot of the stuff in this movie, and I am surprised because a sequel to Black Phone 2 can be a bit risky if you do it incorrectly, but this movie absolutely did it correctly. They nailed the sequel, and this film is as good as the original film. But it does have problems. But real quick, if you want to help me reach my goal of 1K by the end of the year, consider subscribing. Let's continue. And my main problem with this movie, which is a pretty big negative, is the kidnapping story. What makes the first movie stand out so much is that kidnapping story, is that terrifying presence of the grabber, and you're in our main character's shoes, not knowing what to do, and you're solving how to escape along with the character. That is missing in this film. Now, yes, the mystery is different, which makes the movie feel like its own separate thing, but with the same characters. But this time around, we're taking a Nightmare on Elm Street approach, which is not a bad thing, but compared to the first movie, that first movie stood out so much because it was a kidnapping story. It was a much more grounded story that worked in our realm too. That story could happen in real life. That's what made that movie so effective. But when you go to the sequel, it gets a lot more over the top. Like I said, you're in Nightmare on Elm Street, you're in this dream world. Of course, that is not going to happen in real life. It did play into that haunting factor that was touched on in the first film, but the first film also worked really well, not just because of that haunting factor, but because of the kidnapped, hopeless factor that that first movie brought. When you get to the second one, everything's a lot more over the top, skills are a lot higher. Now, did I still like this movie? Yes, I still do think this is a great sequel to the original film, but a huge thing that brings it down from not quite matching the same level of the original film is just missing that kidnapping factor. That's a huge role, that's a huge con, and of course, the sequel was never going to do that the same way the first movie was able to do, so I appreciate the route the sequel went, and I still ended up loving it. Black Phone 2 is a great sequel to the original film. It still gets everything right that the first movie actually had. Acting is better, mystery is still here, and the grabber is still great. The only problem is that the kidnapping story is gone, and the first movie was grounded, this one's a lot more over the top, but this is still a absolutely great sequel to the original film. Although it's not as good, it's still pretty much close to being as good. But anyways, if you like this video, maybe these ones on the side with you too, like, subscribe, see you guys next time, goodbye.